Now, are you too cool for school, or does your blood boil at the slightest annoyance, like that slow driver in the fast lane? Well, apart from the age-old nature versus nurture debate, there's a new ingredient in the mix. That's according to a recent study that inside a rageaholic's DNA, there could be a warrior gene pulling the strings. Now, we tested a string of people, including some of the country's top cage fighters. And you can vote on who you think has the warrior gene on our Facebook page. Are you aggressive? Do you battle to contain your aggression? What makes you lose your temper?
Or road rage for one.
Selfishness. If people question my integrity, idiocy.
We all have our triggers.
When I see that something is not fair, it really makes me angry.
When things just aren't going right.
And then all of a sudden something small will happen and then I'll just snap it.
Aggression is a normal, occasional human reaction, but for some, rage is an everyday thing.
Oh no. This asshole is right up my ass. I need to be in that lane. Ah! Oh, my.
Animal rights activist Nikki Botha is a self-confessed aggressor.
I do have a temper. I am a bit jaded. And I hate humanity in general.
She says she's been a hothead all her life.
People used to call me Fireball as a kid, and that would send me into a rage all over again. But I only became aware of just generally, I suppose, being an angry person, with reason, of course, as an adult.
Her outbursts, she claims, are always justified.
It's when I see injustice and selfishness and people not regarding each other or the environment, and that makes me angry.
Especially in the traffic.
Taxi, screw you. What people don't realize, and this really, really pisses me off, a car is not just an expensive thing that you pay for years to come. It's a deadly weapon. You kill people with it. Drive! It's a turning lane, you dimwit. And a red robot to boot.
While road rage is something most people experience at some point, experts make a distinction when it comes to rageaholics.
An aggressor, the difference there is that this is something that happens almost every day in traffic. It doesn't just stop at a few words to yourself in your car.
According to psychologist Hazel Curian, what makes aggressors different from the rest of us is the extremity of their reactions.
The aggressor is someone who will act inappropriately. It's when their actions cause detrimental results, either for themselves or to other people.
Nikki has tornado-like fury.
Hello, tree.
And you're not shy about hopping out and confronting the motorist?
No, somebody needs to tell them.
It's sometimes not always as overt or in your face as that. It can be having a proper meltdown. It's not a healthy reaction. It's not healthy or beneficial to be so angry all the time.
So knot in my stomach that I can't, my breathing changes, I shake. It's a problem because it'll take me for the whole day to recover.
Costa Ioanu says there was a time in his life when he was prone to rage.
I feel like I haven't lost control in many, many years. When I do get very upset, it's very internal. That's what it's become.
According to his girlfriend of 2 years, Costa has some odd triggers.
Chewing and swallowing, those the smallest things.
Chewing and swallowing?
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to chew?
Not loud.
You want to stop and tell them, like, that's not how you do it. Like, you were taught from a child, don't chew with your mouth open. It drives me crazy.
So do inconsiderate smokers.
In a weird way, it's malicious. They know you're not a non-smoker, but they'll smoke around you. That makes me angry.
He says he seldom loses his temper, but when he does, it turns to rage. So do you feel that you become another person?
100%. I'll be pushed, I'll try to get out of it, and then I remember nothing till it's over. I blank completely.
In trying to understand aggression, there are no simple answers. It's driven by a complex mix of factors.
It's our own decisions that we have control over. So we can control the way we act, the way we behave, as well as how we choose to feel about things or how we choose to think about things. It's the environment that we are in, so whether it's the people that we are surrounded by, our society, and also then our experiences in those societies.
Most of my uncles were soldiers. My father was a soldier. My grandfather was a rebel leader. Yeah.
Savimbi.
Yeah.
Tamar Penna grew up tough, a child of Angola's civil war.
And there was war constantly, so as a child, you know, that can be a bit traumatic.
Orphaned as a boy, trauma played out into Mark's young life as aggression and delinquency.
I was very naughty and I used to do a lot of things. I used to get into a lot of fights with my friends. I think it's just one of the things that I thought, well, you know, I didn't think I was being wrong as such. I was just being a tough kid.
As an adult, he says he's learned to control his temper. You say that you're mostly calm, but at these times when you do lose it or you lost in the past,
Yeah.
what actually happens?
You know, you just feel like, okay, now, you know, it's no matter what, it's on. You know, you've stepped on that line.
You can't hold yourself back.
Yeah, you just wanna go.
Even if you know there are consequences.
No, you don't think about the consequences then.
In their efforts to decipher the aggression code, scientists now suggest that some people may be born to rage. Controversial new studies indicate that inside a rageaholic's DNA, a so-called warrior gene may be pulling the strings.
The warrior gene is a gene that produces an enzyme that's in the brain that regulates how the brain functions and ultimately how we respond to, let's say, anger, fear, or frustration.
Genetic counsellor Nolene Kinsley unpacks the science.
What they have found is that if there's a certain fault or mutation in that gene, that some people that carry that, they have less of this enzyme and it causes them to be a little bit more aggressive than most.
Studies show that 1 in 3 Caucasian men carry the mutant gene. Now that doesn't mean that a third of the Western male population is violent.
It's more defining a predisposition. So it says if you have this lower level of this gene product, then the chances of you being aggressive under certain circumstances is greater than if not. But it's a delicate play between environment and genes. So you don't want to just, you know, throw everything else out just because you found that you have the gene mutation. It's all mixed together.
I'd go so far as to say aggression is almost a human condition. It's not something that we can really escape.
What does it mean?
And it really depends on our experiences, whether it's environment, whether it's our genetics. And I think very often the lines, again, are quite blurred. And I think it's a little bit of everything.
What has been really demonstrated through studying this gene is the impact of nature and nurture together. A classic example is someone who carries this gene mutation, but they've had a good childhood with no trauma, has actually resulted in them not responding inappropriately when there's a trigger. Whereas those that have sometimes responded inappropriately.
What annoys you? What really makes your blood boil?
When people underestimate me, that really gets me going and that gets me really angry.
So that's a trigger.
Yeah, like, oh, look at him, you know, he's not good enough, you know, you'll never do it, Then it gets me like, you know, I'll show you.
The odd shows of belligerence aside, Tamar says he's generally chilled.
What it takes.
So, could he have the warrior gene?
Cold. I don't think so, actually. I think maybe that certain behaviors because of how I grew up and where I grew up, not necessarily because I have the warrior gene.
Determined to find out whether rage is encoded in her genes, Nikki agreed to DNA testing and boarded a flight to Johannesburg. We used the opportunity to test whether she really is quick to rage. Management at the car hire company were in on the plot. For the purposes of this experiment, they agreed to make Nikki's experience as frustrating as possible.
Does it make such a huge difference if you're Mr. or Mrs.?
It does make a difference, ma'am, because the reservation was made under Mr. and we check it out for a Mrs., then the travel agent won't pay us.
Why?
Clearly irritated, she keeps her cool, but only just.
I want it on record. I do not want any unsolicited messages.
Nothing.
Okay, now is that locked or is that open?
An unfamiliar car brings out her darker side.
Oh, thanks. Oh, sake. It's tiring. I don't like feeling angry. It's not a nice way to go through life.
While aggression's a very real part of Nikki's life, it's not likely she carries the warrior gene simply because she's a woman.
And the reason for that is women have 2 X chromosomes and men have an X and Y chromosome. This gene sits on the X chromosome. So if it's present in the male, it's obvious to see.
In women, if the mutation sits on one X chromosome, the body compensates by turning it off. It doesn't function. Keeping with the odds, we invited mostly men for DNA testing, the majority of them professional extreme fighters. In this country, we only do diagnostic genetic testing. In other words, to identify a mutation which confirms a condition like haemophilia or cystic fibrosis. So we haven't got a lab to test for the warrior gene, and we've had these kits flown in from the States. After counselling participants, Nolene collected DNA samples from fighters Jeremy Smith, Ruan Potts and Bernardo Makishi, a big man with a short fuse.
I pray God to help me because when I'm angry, I can sit maybe 2 days.
He takes his rage to the cage.
Before, I used to be scared maybe if I'm angry with my wife, children, I become angry with everyone here.
Also in the mix, a successful businessman, EFC Africa President Cairo Howarth.
I'm pretty chilled. I don't think I have it. It'll be interesting to see again, something fun.
That's it.
Not prone to violence, Cairo makes executive, in-the-moment decisions, something that science says could make him a warrior.
One of the latest papers that have come out has shown that if you carry the gene and you're asked to make a decision promptly, so it's almost like an impulsive decision, that individuals that carry this particular gene make the correct decision and quickly. And they're assuming that it's an evolutionary advantage, because if you can make a quick decision to your advantage, you are going to be the fitter.
Convinced that this must be the case with me, I gave my DNA sample. And then the ladies, rageful Nikki, our sometimes hot-headed producer.
I'm completely reactionary and very aggressive at the moment.
Based on triggers.
And even the even-tempered genetic counsellor took the test.
I would find it interesting, actually, if I was shown to be carrying the warrior gene.
Martin Costa also signed up for the experiment.
Looking at a general classification from 0 to 10, 10 being really aggressive, where would you put yourself?
In the past, maybe my aggression was at about an 8. I've learned to channel it.
His outlet, sport. This one, mixed martial arts.
I think due to my training and due to my sport, I've learned to put a lid on it.
Top five.